Spot on, spot off. Atlanta Motor Speedway announces a track repave and profile to 20 degrees of banking and a decrease in width from 55 to 40 feet in the corners. We'll start off with that one. Spot on, spot off. Brett.
Oh, man, I'm nervous, y'all. I don't know how y'all feel about this, but the last time I remember them repurposing a track and it going bad for them was Bristol. This is the same company. I'm a huge SMI fan, do a lot of hosting at these racetracks. Atlanta's one of my favorite racetracks on the circuit. I'm spot on for repaving because, look, we got to the point that you don't really have a choice, and I'm an anti-repaver, but I am major spot off for completely reconfiguring the track. I don't know what the end goal is here, man, but we're basing this thing off of a way a video game race. Like, I'm nervous, but hey, there's some smart people in this world, so we'll see. I mean, to me, Atlanta and Homestead are our best mile and a halves. So we need to figure out how to make the new Atlanta, kind of be a hybrid of those or more like one of those. I don't know why we're going down this path, Freddie.
Man, like you said, unfortunately it needs it. We saw that yesterday. The track comes apart. We talked about long breaks last week and how if you get a 15-minute break, people are changing the channel. Yesterday we had a track come apart. We had a 15, 20-minute red flag to fix it. So unfortunately, it needs it because you would hope that that could last forever because, like Brett said, that's one of the best. Any track that wears tires as fast as Atlanta does and produces multiple lanes of racing like Atlanta does is what we need in the sport. But like you said, unfortunately, we have to do it now. There's just the track's coming apart. We don't have an option. The thing that I don't understand is we go to all these other mile and a halves now, and some of them are SMI tracks, a lot of them are SMI tracks, and we're spraying the racetrack with some kind of chemical, PJ1, whatever it is, to make the racetracks make more lanes of racing. And now we're going to go to one of our best mile and a halves and take a lane away from racing. Or take a racing lane away. I don't understand the thought process there where why are we adding lanes at some tracks and taking lanes away at others? Which one's right? You're doing both. Why are we going down both paths?
TJ?
I'm not. It does make me nervous too because I look at Atlanta right now and I see them go off into the corner and I see they fan out and use every single lane possible. It's got a lot of character to the track as far as the seams. You guys get on there and try to hook the seams. Some guys can't run the seams because they're too loose. You got so many different options at Atlanta, and the bottom of 3 and 4 at Atlanta is probably one of the harder corners to run the bottom at, and it's challenging for the drivers. To me, it's a great racetrack. It scares me because I look at places that used to have really, 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 really good racing, like Michigan. Texas used to be really good. We used to be all over the track at Texas. Big runs off the high side, guys running the bottom. Places like that, those two are the two probably tracks that I think of the most where you used to be really similar to Atlanta where you could just run all them lanes. Like Michigan to me, like before the repave might have been one of the best tracks we go to as well. Like just the big distance on the bottom, the shorter radius was a huge advantage if you could run it. But the speed on the straightaway from the high side was also really good if you could get it to work. And there was guys that could run the bottom like others couldn't, and there's guys that could run the top like it. So it made for a really good race in my opinion. I mean, I don't know how many races you've done on the old Michigan, but Brett's probably got a handful there as well. But it was just a great racetrack, and Texas was very similar. But it makes me nervous.
Spot on, spot off. SMI doesn't consult drivers about the planned track changes. TJ.
I've got a quote here, too, from Kyle Busch Saturday post-race after his Xfinity win. He said, "Just think about it. Everybody needs to just think. There ain't nobody thinking. Brains for sale, never used, operating racetracks."
Tell us how you really feel.
That interview was epic.
Yeah.
That was.
TJ, what do you think?
Man. I wouldn't change it, first of all, but second of all, I would probably consult the guys that drive on it for thousands of laps. When I say thousands of laps, I mean many thousands of laps.
Yeah. I don't get how we can have the Gluck tweeted yesterday how they have a media bullpen now with the top 20 in points, and every guy was asked if they were consulted about the new reconfiguration, and one guy said yes, Kurt Busch. Maybe they consulted with him because he knew he was going to go out there and wax our asses yesterday. But
hopefully he said, don't change it now.
I don't understand how you have the guys that put on the show in your sport. You don't talk to them about what the track needs. If you're going to do a reconfiguration, why would you not talk to the guys that race on it? Like TJ said, thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of laps sitting in that garage on that racetrack, to where it's just a wealth of knowledge that whether you take their advice or not, still talk to them. It sounds like there was not even any kind of discussion with any of the drivers. So, I mean, if we're basing it off iRacing, and I don't know, I'm assuming the guys at iRacing didn't design the racetrack. Somebody at NASCAR or SMI designed the racetrack, and iRacing just implemented it and built whatever they wanted. But, I just don't understand how you don't include the guys that are putting on the show for you.
Here's your $1 million question. You all know a bunch of drivers. Casey knows a lot of drivers. I know a lot of drivers. You two know a lot of drivers. Tell me one driver that's ever said, I don't like Atlanta. I don't like going to Atlanta. I don't like to race at Atlanta. Atlanta's an awful racetrack. Tell me one. You can't. You know why? Because it's a great freaking racetrack. Now, here you are, to you guys' point, you're going to go off down this path without any driver endorsements, really. And then you're going to end up in a situation like we were in years ago. I'll never forget. I was sitting on the back of a golf cart at Michigan, speak of Michigan, TJ, and they had a drivers-only meeting. And out walks Tony Stewart by himself. And I'm like, you guys know how drivers' meetings are. When they break up, everybody leaves. Tony walks out. He walks a couple hundred yards. He walks by me, and I said, where's everybody else? He said, I'm sick of listening to that shit. They had a drivers-only meeting to tell them to stop being and saying negative things about the sport. But when you go down this path, you're hearing all this negativity out of the drivers this week because you're taking away one of their favorite racetracks in the country, and you're replacing it with what sounds like an unknown gimmick. So they're mad. And they're telling you they're mad. They're mad about a lot this week. I've never seen our drivers so outspoken on so many different topics in one single week as we have for the past few days, man. They're on their soapboxes, and I personally like it. But if you want positive things to be said about your product, Atlanta Motor Speedway, have the guys who are going to be publicly speaking and be your ambassadors on Saturday and Sunday when they race on it involved in the conversation. It's really not that hard for Marcus Smith to pick up the phone. He said he consulted drivers. I honestly thought he probably only talked to Dale Jr. And Dale Jr., God bless him, he's an awesome guy, but he's not a race car driver anymore. He's a former race car driver. So you got to consult with the guys because you need them to like what you're about to do with this racetrack, and they're pissed off they weren't consulted.
Continuing our repave topic, SMI track record of track reconfiguration. Jason?
Denny Hamlin tweeted last week, the same group reconfigured Texas, Kentucky, and Bristol with zero driver input. One of those lost a race. Other one we don't race anymore. And last one we put dirt over it. But hey, what do the drivers know? What'd you think about what your boss said, Freddie?
Well, you know what? Denny's always right. I remember I wasn't around for the Bristol when they reconfigured Bristol, but I was a fan still of the sport, so you got to watch the races. And they took what was a great racetrack where it was, the bump and run was, inevitable. Everybody ran around the bottom, and I thought was great racing. And they kind of just moved that lane to the top lane and kind of took away a lot of the bumping and banging. And everybody, it's a little bit, it's not as bad as when we went to, I remember the first time we went to Texas, we couldn't make a lap of practice. You remember? I think it was McMurray was the first one to go out.
Yeah, he went into turn one.
Went into turn one, spun right out.
I don't think he came back yet.
Yeah.
I think he's still going.
I think Denny was the next one. Denny went out there and, he made a lap and then he got a little bit off the bottom and spun right out. So I just, that was another place that I assume wasn't consulted with the drivers. Kentucky was the same thing. I remember Jimmy Johnson getting high in 3 and 4. Jimmy Johnson now, Jimmy Johnson, probably the best driver of our era, just got a little bit high in 3 and 4 and spun out, all by himself. It's just some of this stuff is, like Denny said.
I'll tell you who else is high. The other people that are high, whoever's making these decisions.
Yeah, it's Denny hit the bullseye with this one, I think.
Brett, what do you think?
Spot on. I mean, look, man, the best part about Twitter is I feel like we get to read people's text messages to other people. You know what I mean? And to me, this was a text message that Denny Hamlin would have sent to one of his driver buddies. But instead, all of us got to read it. So spot on for us having that access and spot on for what he said. I mean, these guys aren't wrong. I mean, and they want a voice. They want a voice. I mean, they're putting their lives on the line out there. They're doing a big time job. They're representing a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and they feel like they're not being included.
TJ?
Yeah, I hate to spot on something Denny does, but the tracks that we had were good, man. We had some great racetracks, and now they just don't have that. We always said, oh, well, we just got to wait for Michigan. Just got to weather a little bit. Well, it's been weathering for a long time. When was the repave?
I want to say it was like my first or second year, like 14 or 15 maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's still weathering, but I don't know. He's got a lot of solid points.
TJ, this one is for you since you know quite a bit about it. Spot on, spot off, the use of iRacing to design.
Kevin Harvick said this yesterday. This is the first time that everybody's had the plan pitched on them 3 days before the race and said, iRacing designed this. I've been in some really, really horrific iRacing events where the track drives nothing like the cars, and it's not anything personal against iRacing. You wouldn't design an airplane and go fly it with passengers in it before you tested it.
I'm kind of spot off because I think they're taking this wrong because I don't think iRacing was just giving the coordinates to build this thing. They weren't consulted as like, hey, what do you guys think would be a great racetrack? What do you guys think would be a great product for the fans? It was like, here are the details. We need you to build this. Let us know when it's done. That's the interpretation that I got from it. I think Steve Myers from iRacing actually sent out a tweet saying something real similar, like, hey, we're just giving the detail. We were consulted about this, but it was like, hey, Freddie, can you make this for us? This is what I want right here. It wasn't, what do you think about this? What's your ideas? Like, they didn't consult them like that. It was, can you build this? Here. So I don't think it's fair for Kevin. And he probably didn't know either right there. He probably didn't know. So
It's like being handed a picture, asking somebody, all right, can you trace this picture for me? You trace a picture, and then they get on your case because, that come out like, that's ugly as hell, So it's like, it's not iRacing. iRacing, like TJ said, they're just handed, all right, build this for me. And they have the ability to do that.
And that's been done with Chicago.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I don't think that's a bad thing. They use that, like you said, to design the street course. And we probably use it in the future to design more street courses. And I think that's a good way to get a look at something. I'm sure they're gonna use it.
Maybe they should use it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think as long as you're not going to iRacing and telling them, okay, you guys design me a racetrack.
Yeah, here you go.
You don't want to do that.
iRacing Super Speedway.
If you have ideas, I'm sure they're going to use it for this California reconfiguration. And it's a good. I think it's a good tool to use to test stuff. Obviously, it's hard to test something that we've never been on. Obviously. But, I like you said, I think iRacing is getting a lot of grief here for no reason where they're just building something that Marcus or NASCAR handed them.
Would you rather play at a golf course that Tiger Woods designed or a golf course that TJ Majors designed? That's my question. iRacing is not at fault here. They're a resource just like everything else is. But the reality is SMI has a lot of money. Bruton Smith is a billionaire with a B. And they've got a lot of resources, and they're not using some of the easiest resources they can get to, which is a text or a phone call to their drivers, to their owners. Find out what those guys want because they're the ones that are going to have to sell this thing. iRacing didn't do anything wrong in this. I think the drivers are just grumpy and their panties are in a wad, and they got a right to be.
So wait a minute. You don't want a Ferris wheel in the middle of the fairway?
No.
I do.
I don't want to play putt-putt. I want to play golf. You look like something they built at Myrtle Beach.
I didn't say windmill. Windmill's always on the the windmill's what you always got to hit
That sounds
through.
like fun to me. I'll do it.
I hit a ball out of the what was it, the median at Myrtle Beach? You remember that?
Yes,
Of course
I do
you did.
remember that. Right off of Highway 17, Freddie's fat ass is out there walking around with a golf club. I'm like, well, this is epic. I videoed it. I got to find that video.
And then you're going to share that story, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we can share any story from Myrtle Beach. The Columbia ones aren't going to happen.
You hit the golf ball in the median of the highway?
Yeah, I was in the middle of the highway. I hit a golf ball, landed on a green. I was amazed. The green. I was probably 50 yards to the left of the green, but I was in the middle. There's a 4-lane highway, 2 lanes each side with a grass median, and I hit the ball out of the grass median.
How many cars were driving by giving you the finger?
He's in Myrtle Beach. There's no traffic out there. What do you mean cars?
People. Continuing drivers' feedback on the repave. Spot on, spot off, wanting pack racing with a tighter track and less grip like the old surface.
So Bob Pockers tweeted last week that NASCAR will do a friction test at Atlanta this week, and then the hope is to go back after the repave and see how close it can be matched. In response to that, Denny Hamlin tweeted, so they are trying to replicate the surface with new pavement, but want pack racing. I'm as confused as the other 35 drivers about this deal.
Spot on, spot off, Brett.
Damn. There's 5 guys that don't even consider drivers out there.
I was just about to say that.
Yes, we knew that.
That sucks.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
Should we name them? Should we name them? No, we probably should name them. I mean, look, man, I just look at Michigan, and TJ brought it up. It wasn't top of mind for me today, but I look at Michigan, and that was an amazing racetrack, and it still sucks after the repave. So I hope whoever the brainiacs are that are behind this thing can get it right, because I said at the beginning of this session, I'm truly concerned. I'm worried. I'm nervous. I mean, all these things we're going over right now just reinforces it. But let me tell you something, man. Atlanta did something really smart last week. And when I first read it, I was kind of like, why would you announce right now you're going to do a repave? But then I had a conversation with somebody at SMI who's a lot smarter than I am. And I asked him why, and he said, we did it because we're hoping that some people will come out to the track to watch the last ever race on this configuration of Atlanta Motor Speedway. And ironically, I had 2 fans at the tweet up say to me, the only reason we came today is because you tweeted this is the last chance we'll ever get to see this racetrack in this shape, in this form, in this format. So shout out to Atlanta for doing that. I thought that was a great move, because otherwise I was like, man, I just don't understand the marketing behind saying I want the story to be about the race this week. Well, what they made it about was, hey, this is the last time you can see this here. But look, Atlanta's an important market for us. It's in the heart of the Southeast. Obviously, Atlanta, the city, is huge. It's 35 minutes from the city. We need this racetrack to do good. And I go back to what Ryan McGee said yesterday. If Atlanta's so great, why are the stands not full? And even when it wasn't running July, you know, or whatever, and in 150-degree heat, what it looked like you guys were standing up there in, I was glad I was in AC. For whatever reason, we aren't selling tickets to that place. So you got to try something new, I guess.
It's also got a gigantic grandstand, too, though. So, I mean, it's got more grandstands there than a lot of places.
Huge.
You know, I think we've been asking on here for years for them to make, TJ's been one of the leading proponents of this, to make a surface that is abrasive. You know, pave a track with whatever you used at Homestead or you know, Darlington. It'll be interesting to see if they can replicate that. But at the same time, you know, it's still going to be super dependent on Goodyear, in my opinion, because now you're going to go back here, and no matter what surface you have, the speeds, I'm sure, are going to be up. Speeds are going to be higher, so Goodyear's going to have to build a harder tire. And the harder the tire they build, one, the tire doesn't wear, as well as, you know, probably what we're running at Atlanta now. And two, you need to make your cars work harder to make that harder tire work harder. So, you know, to just build heat and get grip out of the tire. So I don't know. I think no matter what you do, no matter what surface you build, you're gonna hurt the racing that we've had there in the past.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. And if you're in the market to sell your home, make sure you go visit offerpad.com. Within 24 hours, they'll make you a cash offer. Visit offerpad.com today.